My hands don't shake anymore. Not most days, anyway. But if I'm in a room and someone lights a certain kind of cigarette, the cheap kind with the unfiltered end, my whole body goes cold. It's like a switch gets flipped somewhere deep in my spine, and I'm not here anymore. I'm back there, in that house, in that room. I can smell the mold and the sweat and the chemical burn of the pipe. For 72 hours, I stopped being a person. I was just a thing they used to settle a score. This is how I became a gang's pet for 3 days, to pay a debt I never should have owed. It all started over $50. $50. I think about that now, and I want to scream at the girl I was. I want to shake her until her teeth rattle. But back then, $50 was a mountain. It was the difference between being sick, violently, painfully sick, and being okay for a few more hours. I was in the grip of it, you see. The crack. It had me by the throat, and it wasn't letting go. My world had shrunk to the size of a small rock in a glass stem. Everything else, my apartment, my job, my friends, my dignity, was just background noise. I'd been buying from Marcus for a few months. He wasn't some kingpin, just a middleman with a nasty streak and a crew of guys who hung around his place like vultures. I'd always paid before, scraped it together from somewhere. But this one time, I was desperate. The craving was a living thing, twisting my guts. I went to him, my voice trembling, and asked for credit. Just $50 worth, just to get me through. He looked at me with this flat, empty smile, like he'd been waiting for me to ask. He handed me the baggie, his fingers brushing mine. 2 days, Sarah, he said. His voice was calm, too calm. You don't come back with my money in 2 days. We're going to have a different kind of conversation. That was the red flag, the one I ignored. The hunger in my body was louder than the alarm in my head. I took it, I mumbled thanks, and I ran. Those 2 days were a blur of scraping and pleading. I couldn't get it. $50 might as well have been 50,000. On the morning of the third day, the fear was a solid lump in my stomach. I knew I had to go see him. I thought maybe I could reason with him. Offer to do something, run errands, I don't know. I was so naive. I walked right into the lion's den. I knocked on that door. It wasn't Marcus who opened it. It was a guy I'd seen before, tall, with a spiderweb tattoo crawling up his neck. He didn't say a word, just stepped back and jerked his head for me to come in. The living room was dim, curtains drawn. The air was thick with smoke and something else, something stale and sour. Marcus was on the couch, but he wasn't alone. There were 3 other guys. All of them just looked at me. That's when the first real spike of terror went through me. This wasn't a collection call. This was an audience. You got my money, Sarah? Marcus asked, not moving from the couch. My mouth was so dry. Marcus, please. I just need a couple more days. I'm good for it. You know I am. He sighed like I was a kid who'd spilled a drink. He stood up and walked over to me. He was close enough that I could smell the liquor on his breath. See, that's the thing. You're not good for it. You're not good for anything. His hand came up fast, and he grabbed my chin, forcing my head up. But you can be. You can be of use. I tried to pull back, but the guy behind me grabbed my arms, pinning them behind my back. The panic exploded then, white-hot and blinding. No, no, Marcus, please, I'll get it. I swear. You're going to pay, he said, his voice dropping to a whisper. Just not with money. He nodded to the guy holding me, and I was dragged, kicking and pleading, out of the back door of the apartment. They shoved me into the trunk of a car. The slam of the lid was the loudest sound I'd ever heard. It was the sound of the world ending. It was dark and it smelled of oil and gasoline. Every bump the car hit slammed my body against the metal. I was crying, but it was silent, desperate crying. I was praying, bargaining with a God I hadn't spoken to in years. I think a part of me knew, even then, what was coming. I just couldn't let myself believe it. The drive felt like an hour. It was probably 20 minutes. When the trunk opened, the light stabbed my eyes. We were behind an abandoned house, the kind with boarded windows and a sagging roof. They pulled me out, my legs buckling under me. No one spoke. They just half dragged, half carried me inside. The room they took me to was in the back, empty except for a filthy mattress on the floor and a single wooden chair. The floor was concrete, cold and gritty under my fingers. The only light came from a single bare bulb hanging from a wire in the ceiling. It buzzed, a low, angry insect sound. Marcus walked in last. He looked around the room, then at me, crumpled on the floor. "This is home for a while," he said. "Think of it as a work release program. You work off the debt." "With interest." One of the other guys, a heavy-set man with cold eyes, stepped forward. He had a video camera in his hand, an old one with a little red light that blinked on when he pressed a button. The click of it, the hum of the tape, it made it all real. This wasn't just violence. This was a production. "Stand her up," Marcus said. They yanked me to my feet. My whole body was trembling so hard I thought my bones would crack. Marcus came close again. "The debt is $200 now, for the inconvenience. Every time you struggle, every time you make this difficult, it goes up. You understand? You be a good pet. And this ends faster." The word pet? It slithered into my ear and coiled in my brain. It wasn't a threat of violence anymore. It was a definition. They were defining what I was. The first one was Marcus. He pushed me down onto the mattress. The other three just watched. The guy with the camera circled, getting angles. I shut my eyes tight. I tried to go somewhere else. I thought about the beach I went to as a kid, the sound of the waves. But the sounds in that room were too loud. The rasp of his breathing, the creak of the mattress springs, the shuffling of feet on the concrete, the smell of him, cigarettes and cheap cologne, filled my nose. I felt my soul trying to leave my body. It felt like a real physical sensation, like something thin and silver was pulling up out of my chest, trying to escape through the ceiling. But it couldn't get far enough. I was still there, trapped in the flesh. When he was done, he got up, zipped his jeans, and looked at the camera. "She's got a lot to learn," he said, and the other guys laughed. It was a dry, hollow sound. Then the heavy-set one with the camera put it down on the chair. "My turn," he grunted, and it started again. Time ceased to exist in that room. The bare bulb was always on. I didn't know if it was day or night. There were no windows. The only markers were the arrivals and departures. They would leave sometimes for hours and lock the door from the outside. The silence when they were gone was almost worse. It was filled with the echo of what had just happened and the dread of what was to come. I would lie on that mattress, curled into the tightest ball I could, shaking. I couldn't cry anymore. The tears had dried up. They brought me water in a dirty plastic bottle, a few slices of bread. It was like feeding a dog they didn't particularly like. During one of these breaks, the door opened and Marcus came back in alone. He wasn't holding food, he was holding the pipe. "You're too tense," he said, his voice almost conversational. "You need to relax. Be more cooperative." I shook my head, scrambling back against the wall. "No, please, I don't want it." He just smiled. "It's not about what you want. It's about what I need. I need you to be quiet and compliant." He lit the pipe. the rock crackling and melting into that awful, sweet-smelling smoke. He knelt in front of me, grabbed the back of my head, and forced the stem to my lips. Inhale. I held my breath for a second, a last pathetic act of defiance. He pinched my nose shut. My lungs screamed and I gasped, sucking in the smoke. It hit my brain like a hammer of false peace. The sharp edges of my terror blurred. The room softened. The horror was still there, but it was behind a thick, cloudy pane of glass. "Good pet," he murmured. That became part of the routine. They would use me, and then sometimes they would drug me. The crack didn't bring pleasure. It brought numbness. It made my body something that belonged to them even more completely, because I wasn't even inside it to fight back. I was a hollow shell they could do anything to. The second day, or what I think was the second day, Marcus brought in the cigarettes. He lit one, took a long drag, and looked at me with that same flat expression. "You need to remember who you belong to," he said, "so you don't get any ideas later." He held the glowing tip close to my thigh. I could feel the heat radiating from it. I begged. I promised him anything. He just pressed it down. The sizzle of my own skin is a sound I will hear forever. It was a tiny, wet sound. The pain was sharp and bright, then deep and throbbing. I screamed, but the scream was swallowed by the empty room. He did it again, on my shoulder. A brand, a mark of property. The smell of burnt skin mixed with the tobacco smell. I threw up bile and nothing else onto the concrete. He just stepped back, satisfied. "Now you won't forget." That was my breaking point. The moment hope died. I wasn't getting out of there. I was going to die in that room on that mattress, and they would probably just bury me under the floor. I prayed for death. I prayed for a heart attack, for the roof to cave in, for anything to just stop. I became compliant, silent. I did whatever they said. The thinking part of me, the Sarah part, she went away. She retreated into a tiny dark corner of my own mind. What was left was just a body, operating on instinct, trying to avoid more pain. The camera was always there, sometimes on, sometimes off. Its presence was the ultimate humiliation. It meant this wasn't just something they were doing. It was something they were keeping, a trophy, proof of their absolute power over another human being. I have no idea how long the third stretch was. I was floating in a nightmare, disoriented by drugs and trauma. The door opened and they all filed in. Marcus, Spiderweb Neck, the heavyset cameraman, and a fourth I didn't even recognize. They stood in a semicircle looking down at me. Marcus crouched down. He studied my face, my eyes, which I'm sure were dead and empty. He reached out and pushed my hair back almost gently. "Debt's paid," he said simply. The words didn't make sense. They buzzed around me like flies. "Get up," he said. My body wouldn't obey. It was broken. Spiderweb Neck hauled me upright. My legs couldn't hold me. I sagged between them. "You walk out of here. You don't look back," Marcus said, his voice low and serious. "You go to the cops. We have the tape. We know where your mom lives. You tell anyone we find you, and next time there won't be a debt to pay. Next time you just disappear. You understand?" I managed a slight nod. It was all I could do. They half carried me out of the room, through the gutted house, and out the back door. The outside air hit me. It was cool, and it smelled of rain and wet earth. It was so clean it hurt my lungs. They let go of me. I stumbled and fell to my knees in the overgrown grass. "Walk," Marcus said from the doorway. "That way, and don't stop." I got to my feet. Every step was agony. My body was a map of bruises and burns. I walked down the alley away from the house. I was waiting for the gunshot. I was convinced that as soon as my back was turned, they would shoot me. This was just a cruel game to give me a glimpse of freedom before they took it away. I kept walking. I didn't look back. I turned a corner, then another. I walked until I saw a street with normal houses, with porch lights on. I saw a woman watering her flowers. The normalcy of it was blinding, terrifying. I must have looked like a ghost, a madwoman. I found a payphone. I don't remember dialing. I called the only person I thought might still care, an old friend from before the drugs. All I could say was, "Please, come get me. Please." I gave her the street name. Then I slid down the wall of the phone booth and waited. I just stared at the cracked pavement, at a single dandelion pushing up through it. I stared at it like it held the secrets of the universe. The aftermath? That's a different kind of prison. The physical wounds healed, the burns scarred over these two ugly puckered marks. I see them every day. The other wounds, the ones you can't see, they festered. For years, I was just a raw nerve. I jumped at shadows. I couldn't be touched. The smell of cigarette smoke would send me into a panic attack so severe I'd black out. I had nightmares where I was back in that room, but the door was gone, just a smooth wall, and the camera's red light was always on. I got clean. I had to. Every craving for the drug was tied inextricably to that room, to the taste of the pipe they forced on me. Getting high would have meant going back there in my mind. I couldn't survive it. I never went to the police. The threat was too real. The tape. I see it sometimes in my dreams. That little red light. I wonder where it is. I wonder who's seen it. That feeling of being permanently captured in that state of degradation is its own life sentence. My warning isn't poetic. It's simple. It starts with a $50 debt. It starts with a choice you think you have to make when you're desperate. It starts with ignoring that cold feeling in your gut. There are predators in this world who don't see people. They see opportunities. They see objects. And if you put yourself in their path, even once, even for a moment, they will strip you down to nothing. They will make you a pet. They will make you a thing. And you will carry the marks inside and out for the rest of your life. I carry them. I see them in the mirror. I feel them when I try to sleep. I am out of that room, but that room will never, ever be out of me. I was their pet for 3 days, and I've spent every day since trying to learn how to be a person again. Some days I almost make it. Other days I just smell the smoke and disappear.